Welcome to today's episode of Autumn's Conversation, a dialogue with 3 women entrepreneurs embracing authenticity and courage. Autumn is a digital health, wealth and lifestyle solution that helps you simplify planning into small steps. Autumn's mission is to empower every Singaporean to take charge of their future and be future fit. Today, we're privileged to have 3 successful women entrepreneurs with us, Simone, Yasmine and Anna, to share their stories on how they connected with their authentic self to break the glass ceiling and take charge of their financial destiny. First off, we have Simone Heng, a human connection specialist and former international broadcasters for the likes of Virgin Radio Dubai, HBO Asia and CNBC, among others. She's also the founder of CourageousSpeaking.com, an online presentation skills membership which allows people from all over Asia to connect with their voice. Simone, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
And next we have Yasmine Khater, the CEO of Sales Story Method, where she enables leaders and businesses on using the power of storytelling to grow their income, influence and impact. Yasmine, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me too.
And joining us from Zoom, last but not least, we have Anna Haotanto, the founder and CEO of The New Savvy. She's also the Chief Marketing Officer of Gourmet Food Holding, which has brought in the brands such as Sutak, Vietnamese restaurant, Mrs. Pho and gourmet burger brands Bert's Burger to Singapore. Anna, welcome.
Thanks, I wish I was there. But yeah, looking forward to the discussion with Simone, Timothy and Yasmine.
And for those of you joining us at home, thank you for joining us today during lunchtime. Hope you have your lunch ready or you're eating right now. We will have Pigeonhole for our Q&A session later on. So if you guys got any questions for Simone, Yasmine and Anna, feel free to scan the QR code that you see on your screen right now. So so let's just start with our panel discussion today. One common similarities that I know the 3 of you have is that all of you are successful entrepreneurs and have been running your own business for some time. So I want to ask all 3 of you, what made you decide to go on this route to start your own business? And I think let's start with Yasmine, because I think despite your age, you actually have already run your own business for almost 10 years, because to be honest, you don't look like you're working for 10 years at all. So Yasmine, why don't you share with us what made you decide to start your own business? And if I'm not wrong, you used to work for someone else as well. So It wasn't like you were an entrepreneur for day one, right?
No, but what happened to me is, unfortunately, at the age of 14, my father lost his job. And as a result of him losing his job, my mom encouraged us to sell things that we used to make. So at the time I used to paint. So she was like, if you want to go to painting class and you want to buy equipment, you got to make your own money. And I was looking at her, I was like, huh? How? She's like, sell. And I remember realizing that as long as I had a product that somebody wanted to buy, that I could actually make money. And it was a very weird thing in the very beginning. But then I realized that I could pay for my classes, and then I eventually had another business where I used to make jewelry, and the precious stones cost money. So again, I had to learn how to get comfortable with selling. So unfortunately, shortly after that, my father passed away. And when I was working in the oil and gas industry. I didn't want anyone's job. So it was just so if I'm here and I'm going to invest 20 years of my life in this business, then if I don't want anyone's job, then what would I rather be doing? And at the time I read the book, The 4-Hour Workweek. So I was I want to live around the world and travel and do all these things, because if life was short, then I wanted to make sure that I was living it to the best. So I launched a business, and it was just very small. I was a solopreneur, so not really I would say what it is today. It's just enough for me to be able to travel to 12 countries a year for over 3.5 years.
A year, 12 countries a year.
Yeah, it was a month at each location. It was so much fun. So it was literally, for me, what's more important with business is how do you live the life that you truly want to live, and how do you use business as a way to enable that lifestyle that you want to create. And now for me, it's a different chapter where it's okay, I've done that and I've lived a life which I couldn't even pretend to I couldn't even imagine was possible. Now, how can I help more leaders and more entrepreneurs do the same thing by learning how to master how they speak and how they also be able to craft better messaging around what they want to share?
Okay, thanks, Yasmine. Simone, just want to ask you the same question, because I know you have been working with various media companies across the world for a good part of your career. So I just want to ask, what made you decide that, after you left maybe your last full-time job, that hey, you don't need to find another full-time job, you can actually just start your own business to do what you want?
Yeah, so when I started in the media, so 15 years ago, everybody wanted to be chosen by brands. Like it was the thing that a brand would want to work with us. And then obviously the culture changed where you no longer wanted to then work for other people's brands as validation. I really wanted to see if I could be part of that economy where people were making things of their own and creating things. And for me, I'm very mission-led and I'm led by the type of work. So some people want to build a business to not be part of it and sell it. I absolutely love every single part of the business, except for the admin, but I have someone to do that. And so I always wanted to be a speaker, but I looked too young going through the process. You know, when you're a corporate speaker, you're relying on corporations to really be invested in you and your message, and you have to have credibility and authority. And I really felt when I was younger, I didn't have the message that I have now. And so when that message started brewing inside of me, and when I started to feel extremely stifled by being in an organization that controlled my brand and controlled what I could say, I knew it was kind of the perfect crunch time to go off and do it. And it, you know, the best thing has been, it was actually, the fear of leaving was much greater than the reality of actually
starting your own business.
And I was like, you idiot, you should have done this ages ago. So if you are watching this, I'm telling you, lady, you can do it. The fear is much bigger than the reality.
All right, thanks for sharing. And Anna, the next one for you. I know you were in the financial industry, right? And you decided, I think it was at least 5-6 years ago, to leave the financial industry. I think a pretty good paying, high paying job to start your own company. What led to that decision? And just to add on as well, you know, were you worried about that financial instability of actually starting your own business and not having that regular source of income working for someone else?
When I heard Yasmine and Yasmine and Simone speak, right, I'm very, very envious because I feel that both of them know what they want to do at an early age. For me, I just wanted financial stability because my family's financial situation was a bit messy, and hence all I wanted to do was to actually work in a bank and to earn a good income so that I can have I can buy a property for my family. So I left in 2014, 2015, and I think for me, I didn't set out to start a company. So so not to romanticize it, I actually left because I wanted a break due to my health. And but I think I stumbled upon the new savvy, and what I realized was I learned a lot of financial literacy. I learned a lot about financial education, and why are we not taught about this? You see, so I thought to myself, okay, I want to help people, and what is the best way I can help people? I actually wanted to start a financial education company for children because I think good money habits should start young. And I think it always astounds me how we are not taught about, managing our money in schools, right? I always say we are forced to be good in, math, sciences, technology, English, languages, but nobody teaches us how to manage our emotions and relationship with money. So that was the premise of the New Savvy. I think it has been, we actually just celebrated our 6 years anniversary. And yeah, so one thing led to another. And now I think I'm on my third entrepreneurship journey. But the New Savvy is actually my fourth company. I had 3 failed companies that failed as soon as they started.
Oh wow! So that's kind of a bit different from what Simone's advice was.
I think my scale smaller scale. But I must say, I love your Berg's Burgers. It's a favorite in my house. So, jia you for bringing that.
Yeah, and I also think for me, it's also like sort of side hustle. Like I don't necessarily think you should jump into a business until like I left when I had my salary being made as my side hustle.
Okay.
So like there's no risk involved because I literally could replace.
And that is the rule I share online all the time, because I get girls asking me all the time that they want to go and be speakers, and they see me going around the world speaking, they think it's really fun. I'm like, I did it for 2 years on the side until it was earning the same as the on-air work. Okay. And then all the gigs I had to say no to because I was on air, I tabulated them all up my opportunity cost? What would it be if I could leave? And it was more than, so it made the decision easy.
Okay, so basically, for those of you who are thinking of starting a business or just want to go the entrepreneurship route, doing a side hustle is probably a good way to consider taking that first step first, right, basically.
Yeah, like, do people actually want what you're selling? That's a great way to find out, right?
Nice.
And like people want when they pay you. So I have a lot of people who are like come to me like, oh, I've been testing this idea for 2 years. I'm like, just get a client. Like that for me is like the only validation. If someone has paid you one time and if they pay you again and somebody else pays you again, like on the third, fourth, you're like, this is something that people want. So therefore, if I can sell 3 or 4, I can sell 20, 30, 40, 100.
Yeah, there's no bigger vote of confidence than somebody willing to give you their money for what you're selling.
Just a quick poll among the three of us, I mean the four of us here, right? We are all entrepreneurs, right? We are all running our own business. Who thinks that running your own business was actually easier than what you thought starting it?
Oh no, I don't think it was easy. Okay. Like I think it's
Wait, Anna, what's your vote? Easier?
I don't think it's easier or harder. I think the only difference I feel is you're more emotionally involved. You know, because you only have yourself to blame, right? And you're responsible for everything that you do, that everything matters a lot more. I don't think the work is harder or easier. I think it's more of every little thing matters so much to us that, you know, even a mistake it's very painful for us, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. No, it's almost like I still remember when I first started my business, which is like, hey, where's my resignation letter? I can't find my resignation letter, because that's how it's like when you start your own business, right? You can't just resign after a bad week or a bad period of time. If I had a resignation letter, I would have thrown it in sometime ago.
And the reason why I think it's like, for me, it was harder is because there were so many things that I had like infatuated of what it was like. I had like thought it was going to be so simple. And then I had to learn about accounting and finance and admin. Admin is the most horrible thing in the world. And like all these other things that have to be done on repeat. And like no one tells you this. I just thought like, go make a bunch of money. I was like, I wish that was just as simple as that. But there's like logistical things that have to be in place.
I think Simone
just a reminder to all the viewers out there, if you guys have any questions, you all can scan the QR code that you guys see and can ask us questions, which we will take on later on. And we move on to the second part of our discussion. According to the latest data from the Department of Statistics, Singaporean women are living among the longest around the world, not just in Singapore.
Wow!
81.5. So that's about 5 years lesser than the average female in Singapore, right? The good thing is it's still higher than the global life expectancy. So life expectancy globally is 74.2 years for females. So Singapore females are actually living more than 12 years actually more than the average woman, right? So that's actually a lot of years.
And every single time I'm like thinking like, just marry younger men, everyone. Just marry younger men.
Okay, that's one tip, but I'm going to go beyond that. Okay, so when we want to live longer, obviously we want to be happier as well. We don't just want to live a long life for the sake of it, right? And this means we also have to make the right decisions, be it whether it's our finance, our physical health, and also, of course, our mental health. So these are things that we all have to balance. And my first question, I'm just going to ask Simone this question. How do you envision balancing between these three aspects, your physical health, your mental well-being, and of course, our financial health?
Okay, well, first of all, 86 plus years. I mean, girl, I am 100% genetically Singaporean, so I'm really hoping that those genes are going to hold out. And that, of course, brings to the second concern is like, we want quality of life. My parents, not great genes. My dad died when I was 19. He was 60 years old. And my mother has a disease that put her into a wheelchair at 67. So, she's basically at the stage now at 74 where she can't really even speak anymore. And so watching that has given me, both of those things have given me a great sense of my own mortality, which my boyfriend thinks is very morbid. But I like to think is a wonderful thing that has happened to me that maybe some of my peers haven't been through, that have made me really cognizant about my health. So when I say that, both my mental and physical health, I have routines in place. Every morning I get up, I work out, I have a counselor. Every time something's stressing me out in the business, I go to the counselor, I go to a professional to talk about it. I have all of these things in place to make sure that what happened to my parents doesn't happen to me. And I think as well, to tap on a question that, the part of the question about the quality of life for that time, my parents were Singaporean immigrants in Australia, and one of the things that they did really, really well was they were savers. They had a very big scarcity mindset about money, which we'll talk about later, but because they were always talking about saving money and the lack of safety when you don't have money, as children that was kind of drummed into us. So they bought properties, and when my mother got sick, because they had this extra property they were able to sell and give the $500,000 cash bond to the nursing home, they were able to rush my mum into a really good facility, which is like, she got a spa, okay, and a cinema in there, okay? So, but what I sat down one day and thought about was, if Dad had lived, and they didn't have even more properties, and both of them had been in that situation, that means the quality of care would have been greatly reduced. So she would not be in the ritzy nursing home with the cinema and the spa. They would both be in lesser care. And I think that was another kind of punch to the face of like, what is the quality that you want? And look at your situation really realistically. Who is in your household? What is the health of your spouse? My spouse is 14 years older than me. So obviously this is like, that's also a different story. So everyone is individual. You do you, but think about these things. Don't be like, oh, I'm so scared, it's so morbid, I don't want to think about it. No, think about these things. It's important.
And I think it sometimes comes a lot earlier than we expect it to also, right?
Yeah, toy, but it does.
Yasmine, I'm just going to ask you that same question, but because I also know that, you spend your early 20s, traveling to many places, I think once a month, 12 times a month, 12 times a year for a few years, right? So, that's obviously great from a mental health standpoint, getting to travel to so many places, but did it come at the expense of other areas of life, like your financial well-being?
Yeah, so like I told you earlier on, like I thought when I moved to Singapore, I moved from Egypt. So like developing country, and I got paid the salary, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so rich. And I was living with my grandparents, so I just it was so much disposable income. So I remember going to the bank and thinking, okay, I'm gonna invest now. And unfortunately, I got bad advice, and none of my investments actually worked. The bank made a lot of money, I didn't make a lot of money. So after 3 years, I'm just like, what's the point of saving if it's not gonna grow? I might as well spend it. Like, life is short, my dad passed away at 21, so c'est la vie, this is it. So until I was 30, I didn't really think about saving. I just anything I wanted, I bought. And that was pretty much my mentality. And then at 30, unfortunately, my auntie, who's very close to me like a second mother, she got cancer. And that's when the time where I was like, shit. For her, it was a massive shit because her husband was the breadwinner. He had a brain injury. So he wasn't making any money. So all of a sudden I realized her stress and her cancer, similar to my father, came because of financial stress. So I started to realize, wow, if I don't take care of my money right now, at one point, I'm gonna get stressed out because I'm gonna have more and more bills to pay, and I have never worked on it. So at 30, I realized, maybe this way of living is not the right way of living. And that's why I think no matter how old you are, no matter where you are in your life, it just really starts off with starting today and just becoming aware that there's no shame. And I feel like for many years, I had a lot of shame and guilt around it, where I always thought I should know better, I'm smart, I'm educated. But it was because of Anna. She had a program, I think 5 years ago, where she matched me. I realized that my story was that I always thought my father would take care of it, my partner would take care of it. But then my partner died my father died at 55. So if I have a partner who does at 55, and I'm already 30, then I'm screwed, mathematically with your numbers, we're all screwed. So my advice is always realize that money is just as important to your mental health and well-being as anything else, as well as taking care of yourself. And I think a lot of times what I see a lot is that parents and even people put a lot of pressure for their parents or for their children and not for themselves. And that causes a lot more health risks than you taking time to play and have fun. And that's why for me, not just therapy, but I have in terms of float sessions and my TCM, and I go sailing and I go rock climbing, all these things are part of my playtime that makes me first wealthier, but also makes me healthier and like have a lot more fun.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think there is that balance we all have to strike between our health, physical, financial, and mental.
Yeah.
And I mean, before I ask Anna this question, I just want to share some interesting statistics that we found. So, based on the OCBC Financial Wellness Survey, which was done last year, I think about only 38% of women think, 38% of women actually think that investing is like gambling, and only 18% of females feel that they are on track with their retirement, and I think 28% of them, only 28% of them are confident with investing their own money. So Anna is the expert here, so I'm just going to let her share.
Yeah, please share.
And the first question to you is, are you surprised, are you shocked by some of these statistics that I'm sharing right now?
No, not at all. I think 4 years or 5 years ago, there was a worldwide study, a global study that is done, right? And it's 41% of women are not investing their money. I don't think that in terms of financial literacy, we have progressed much. I guess what I've noticed though in the past 5 years, there are actually more financial institutions trying to engage, women, but I mean, whether or not it's effective is a different thing. I think to me, the underlying problem is that there are a few issues, right? Women are, finance is very boring to most people, not to me, but
So much fun.
yeah, but I always say like after a hard day of work, you want to be watching something on Netflix and chilling with, wine. You don't really want to learn about finances. You don't want to read about money or how to invest. So I think the question so first it's very difficult for somebody to actually have an interest, and the barrier to understanding is actually quite high. So how do we make it engaging and relatable to women so that they put a priority to it? I think the second part is also, I think for people my age, mid-30s, since young, a lot of women are brought up with the thought that, just go to school, get married, and the man will handle all your finances. This is not a woman's job. So with this type of, I think, upbringing and mindset, I think that's also another reason why some people that I know, some women that I know shut down when it comes to finances. And I think previously, people have also talked down to women about finances. When I first started the New Savvy and we tried to fundraise, I spoke to a lot of, a lot of money guys. And when I tried to fundraise, everyone told me, and they always tell me like, why do you want to start? Why do you want to do this? Women are just not interested in finances. Why do you not want to cater to men, right? And so I think what is heartening those, Timothy, is that in the past 6 years, the conversation has changed. I think for now, especially with the pandemic, people are worried about job security. People are worried about, being able to survive if we don't go back to work, right? So I think more and more people are actually watching their finances and they're getting more interested in it. Social media has also helped, I think, the younger batch of women or millennials to know that this is something that they should be paying attention to.
It's interesting you note about like families and I think, Anna, you're just saying about how a lot of men make financial decisions in the family. And I just want to talk about maybe my personal experience, right? So I grew up in a household where my dad makes a lot of financial decisions, right? And I think that's quite common in Singapore. And naturally, as a guy, I grew up thinking that, when I'm older, I would need to make financial decisions for myself, my spouse, as well as for my kids, because if I don't, then who would? So you just copy what your dad was doing. And I think, do you guys think do you all think that the opposite apply as well? Which means basically, if you have a young girl who is growing up in a household where she doesn't see her mom making a lot of financial decisions, if that's not a topic that's important to them, then there is a higher tendency that when she grows older and she becomes a working adult, that she might actually subscribe to that same mindset, which is that, I don't really need to think about money so much, maybe until something of a life event triggers that need to, Simone, you want to share?
Yeah, look, I want to talk about the role of culture and money. So in my family, I was lucky that my mum was very kanchong, and so she took quite equal reins with my dad. My dad was just like, you know, they always say Teochews are really good business people. My sister actually says the only bad Teochew businessman. Like, he was just really bad. But both of my parents, because they were immigrants, had this very threat mindset about money, scarcity mindset. So like, Mum, the fridge is broken, like the water is melting on the floor. The white people will cheat us. We will wait until your uncle's brother's girlfriend's brother can come and fix it. I was like, but meanwhile, so they had this very threat mindset as immigrants. And so that whole thing about just save your money, there was nothing beyond that. And this idea that money was hard to make. You know, you've got to be hardworking. Your father works in the shop all day. And I think that was really destructive for me. And then when I became my own business owner, so this is really recent, it's only like 2-3 years ago, I think I stayed in an organization that I hated for too many years because everyone in that organization had a similar, like, you know, it's so hard out there. It's not good. So that tapped into my existing narrative about scarcity and fear. And then when I left, and I was like, well, every month I'm just going to raise my rates and see what they'll do. And to see that that idea could be totally undercut by truth was life-changing. So we could take that and project that onto this idea of the man makes all the decisions in the house, and I should just follow what has been programmed. What's to say you can absolutely undo that if as a woman you don't want that to be the case?
But to what extent, I mean, you stay in a few places and you work in a few different countries. So obviously, you know, when you move from one country to another, you have to make good financial decisions,
yes.
ideally. But to what extent do you think those decisions of having worked in so many places played a part in, for yourself, being more financially empowered today to actually understand and make your own financial decisions?
Made me so responsible. So I got poached from working at a small radio station here in Singapore to work for Virgin Radio in Dubai when I was 24. So I moved to the Middle East not knowing anyone. And one of the first things that I did was I always Google salary and then tax. So Dubai was tax-free. And then online now you're empowered. It was 2009, but you get what I mean. You could find out the average price of an apartment and then how much living expenses were and working out if that's viable. So if a company offers you money to go overseas, like, you really got to work out, hey, I've got a girlfriend who got offered a job in Boston. She was like, this is amazing. I was like, honey, it's not the Singapore tax. Did you Google the tax? So it made me very wary about, like, living standards, and I pay attention to all those surveys about expat, most expensive city, this, that, and the other. But it also made me very responsible. So the very first thing that I noticed when I lived in Dubai was how Singaporean I actually was in terms of money, because all my British friends, they now had 30% minimum extra on their spending, disposable income, because they're not paying British tax. So a lot of my friends left the country with no savings, do 5 years there, no savings whatsoever, or some of them even got into debtor's jail. Like, so debtor's jail, like Charles Dickens' debtor's jail, still exists in Dubai. So if you have a loan, they can take your passport, you can go to debtor's jail for not paying off a credit card. So that made me very, I mean, there's some good and bad things out of that. It highlighted that threat mindset that I'd grown up with. It just fed right into that narrative and probably kept me in media a little bit extra. But, you know, these are all fantastic learning lessons that you get when you hop countries.
Or when you are forced to be outside of your comfort zone, basically.
Yeah.
Yasmine, I want to ask you, because I know, like, investing is a very intimidating topic for most people, regardless of gender, and you probably, were intimidated by the idea of investing a few years ago before you meet Anna.
I love you, Anna. Like, literally.
Yeah, so this was an initiative that Anna had, and that was also the first time I met Yasmine in person, actually. So I just want to ask you, how has that journey been since, starting off as a new investor, not knowing much, to being a lot more confident when it comes to not just managing your money, but also making investment decisions on your own?
Yeah, so I think, like, it started off not actually investing, but learning about personal finance and learning, like, how does this money thing work, and as well as all the stories, like what Simone mentioned about, like, what I thought about money. So I didn't realize, I thought that money was hard to come by, that, like, I couldn't make that much money, and I also think for a very long time I was anchored on how much I was getting paid in my job. So I just automatically assumed that's how much I'm worth in society. And I totally did not understand the idea of, like, actually you grow your wealth by how much value you create. So that was actually like the biggest dilemma that I had to do.
So good.
And
so
then
true.
and then after that I was like, okay, now like I figured out this whole like, and to be honest, like I very much, I'm so grateful for Dave Ramsey. He had like this 7-step. It was like the dummies personal finance path. And the first thing is that like, okay, make an emergency fund. And then after that, I realized that within investing, there's so many options. You can choose property, which is what I first did. I bought a property. That was my first thing. 'Cause as an Arab Singaporean, as well as like buy property. So then I did, and then I realized this is actually a really bad investment when you're 30, putting all your money in a condo, when I should have been investing in equity. I would have made bigger returns, but because I was like, oh, buy property, it's one thing safe. And then eventually I learned like also there's REITs, which are real estate investment trusts. There's also options, there's equity, there's robo-advisors, all these things. And what really helped me, because of Anna and for Dawn from Budget Bay, she was like, just pick one and learn one thing per year. So the first thing that I learned when I was 30 or 31 was REITs. So I did a course with the Fifth Person, really eye-opening, and that became my foundation. And then I realized, oh, well, like REITs give me like 5% a year, but I'm only 31.
Not exciting enough, right?
Not exciting. And then I was like, oh, then how can I get to 10% a year? And that was like, oh, then I have to do, equity. And last year during the pandemic, when everyone was freaking out, like I made like 65%.
Oh.
And I'm just like, and there's something that I could have done, like my cousin made 120%, but I was like still, and thinking about that, thinking that like you can literally have $1,000 today and next year have 2,000, and whether it's 1,000 or 100,000, that's like life changing. And for me, the biggest thing about investing is that if you live in a world where you realize that there's so much possibility, like finances give you that possibility. Like last year in the pandemic, I launched a card game. Like I wanted to be a card game developer, but like I would never do it as a main job because I didn't think it was possible. But that brought in like $50,000 extra because I now have money that I can actually be creative with and play. And now I'm making a new game about intimacy. So it's like I just start to realize like, oh, I can start to play things and be really the most creative version of myself because I have the money to do that. And I think for a long time I thought that because I wasn't born wealthy, I couldn't make wealth. But it doesn't make a difference. Like most of the world is middle class, but we live in a time where there is more millionaires made every day than any time of history. That for me is like, there's kids who are buying crypto and becoming like overnight like multi-millionaires. And that for me is magical.
I think a lot of times you got to really step out of your comfort zone in order to discover for yourself what your talents can bring you, what you can do for yourself. And we know who is paying for drinks later.
But also just one thing as well, like for people who are looking to invest, like you don't have to start with a lot of money. So when I started working with Dawn and with Anna's program, I started investing $200 a month. And like I was so petrified. But the biggest thing I learned is like if you just put the habit of like allocating a certain amount every month, then you start to look at the end of the year like, oh, if that's how much I made, what if I actually put 1,000? Like, what if I put 2,000? And then the numbers become quite magical.
Yeah, it's the habit that you have to develop.
Yeah.
And I just want to bring back this question about family having an influence on how we grow up and our mindset towards money. I mean, you shared earlier that one of the reasons why you wanted to go to banking was also to earn enough to, purchase a home for your family and stuff, right? So do you want to share a little bit more, like, after being able, do you think that to some extent family background influence heavily, especially women as they grow up and how they think about money?
I think maybe I'll start with my own background. My parents are business people. So my dad is Indonesian and my mom is Singapore Eurasian. So they had me while they're 20, went back to Indo, and their businesses failed. And so we have been living in financial insecurity throughout my childhood. And I think with my parents, it's very interesting because, they made so many financial mistakes. And when I look back, when I was early 20s, I look at them and I wonder, why do you do all these things, right? It's very plain and simple to me, So one of it is my mom, I mean, it's not her fault, but I think because we were running out of money, she borrowed against a credit card. So she took 20,000 and as we know, it's not the amount that kills you, it's not the principal, it's not the 20,000 that kills you, it's actually the interest rate that is about 24%. And I knew that being the oldest, I have to work hard and to be, to pay off these loans and this debt. But what happened was I was actually in university. I was in university and we were renting a flat in Tampines, a HDB flat. And at that point of time, market was very frothy. It's '07, just before the crisis. And my mom didn't really earn a lot. And I think like what Yasmine said, she and Simone, I think my family is a very Asian family. They have a very scarcity mindset, right? So I was very afraid that we were going to get evicted at university. And so I sat down during one of my finance class and I said, I want to buy a HDB flat for my family because I don't want to live in fear my whole life. So for me, it's not driven to, for me, my whole financial journey is driven by fear of getting kicked out of our house. So I sat down and I said, okay, how much does this cost, right? And being naive and I think idealistic, I didn't realize that a HDB costs $500,000. So I think I started asking myself, how can I, a very ordinary 21-year-old girl, actually save so much money? $500,000 is unimaginable for most people, especially when you're that young. So I sat down and I did a simulation and, I tried to work backwards. And what I realized is, for most people, if you earn a decent income in a very average income, you will never, it's very, very difficult to get that kind of money, that kind of savings. So I think, and it will take a very, very long time. So I thought, what I realized then was that you need to make your money work harder for you. And I think what also happened is that at that point of time, I had this financial goal that I internalized. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Can you hear us?
Yeah. Sorry?
We can hear you.
Okay, yeah. So I internalized this financial goal, and for the next 7-8 years, all I wanted was to save my money and invest my money and to learn how to make my money work harder for me. So I think to answer your question, family background does make a difference. I think environment do too, but you can be in control of your finances. To Yasmine's point, I think it doesn't matter the amount of money that you start with, but the most important point is to start. Even if you start small, even $100, when I first started, you don't have, you need to buy stocks in lots of thousands, right? So you need to have a certain capital, but now you can do fractional investing. So the point is just to start early, to dip your toes, because you are going to make mistakes. You're going to lose your money. You're going to make so many mistakes, but you need to be comfortable with it.
Great. Yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing. I think that was really inspiring. And I mean, I heard you interview and give these answers before the other media, but I haven't heard you say it before, so it's really, really encouraging. We will go to some questions. I think we got some questions coming up, and I just want to touch on some of the questions. You guys can continue asking even as we're asking these questions. So one of it, I think a very real problem in Singapore, if you ask me, is that a lot of women may feel pressured or may want to leave the workforce to care for children, and so logically they have less money, and maybe they become reliant on their husband to bring in the bacon, to bring in the dough, right? Do you guys got any thoughts on that question? Because I think that's a genuine question. I'll share first. We have kids, so me and my wife, we have kids. And I think one of the things that we had to have this conversation when we had, I think our first one after the first girl, is that I sat down with her and we talked about whether, does it make sense for her to leave the workforce? And I think at that point in time, she's still working, but at that point in time, we make that decision that she wants to continue working. We felt that it was also important for her to continue working, not just financially, but also to, she didn't want to basically give up the career yet at that point in time, because that's usually for most ladies, that's in your early 30s, that's where you're in your prime of your career. So I think it's a hard decision. Yeah. Any thoughts or sharing on that?
Well, firstly, that's what contributes to the global gender pay disparity, is actually those years over the course of a career lifetime, those years that a woman gets taken out is what actually contributes to that. Look, I'll use the parallel, because I haven't had kids, but I'll use the parallel of people, and we see this all the time in Singapore as well, women leaving to care for their elderly parents, which is something I went through. And for example, in the Australian environment, you would get money from the government, a carer's allowance to do that. But women do not get an allowance to go and take care of their own children. So I believe, because my partner and I'm a lot older, so I'm 37, he's 51, we've already made a reasonable amount of our own financial health, and so we're bringing that to the relationship. So I read a book, and don't laugh, this can be a bit controversial, that actually said that the partner that gives up to go and take care of the children, that could be male or female, predominantly female in the Asian environment, however, that she should be getting an allowance to take care and then putting that money into whatever investment she wants. Like, there needs to be something for her, just the same way you're caring for elderly parents, you got to give up your job. Well, I get an allowance from the government if I was back in Australia. Well, I didn't at the time, but you can. So that's my opinion on it. Otherwise, what security is that?
Sorry, I want to ask, so you think...
I don't think it's controversial. I absolutely agree with you.
Good, because I read a personal finance book about that, and I thought, yes, that's so what I do if I have kids in my 40s.
Who do you think should be the one giving the allowance? The government or the husband?
No, the partner. I'm just using it as an analogy, as I don't have babies and I'm not a mother, so I was just using that as an analogy.
I actually have one of my alumni from my business school. He does that. He gives his wife half of his salary. And I was like, oh. And he's like, what does she do with it? He's like, well, she invests. I was like, oh. And he's like, that's why I married her, because she's a smart woman. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, this is really hot. Like, all of this is really amazing. But it's because, like, they've had so much communication around that. Mm-hmm. And for him, he's like, she could earn a lot more than I can, but she wants, because of emotional attachment. Because when you have a mother, the hormones get released to be with the kids for the first few years. So then if she's going to do that, he's going to give her half of his pay. Yeah, so it's quite beautiful. But she invests.
Are you giving your wife an allowance right now?
She's working.
Oh, okay.
But like,
Tim's like,
but she invests her own money, Tim.
That's a good question. I think it's an unorthodox suggestion, but I think it makes sense. So I mean, that's something I think more couples can think about those ideas.
Yeah, I have thought about it, and the expert that proposed it in this book was saying that it stops false dependencies. Dependencies based on finance. So either party can have more autonomy.
No, but I think one thing to also add on to that as well is that today, because of the internet, you have the choice to do different kinds of work. So the idea of going to a job and working 9 to 5, there's actually much more options. So even like if you are a stay-at-home mom, even with Instagram, it's quite amazing. People have businesses all run on Instagram, and I'm just like, you can bring in money by doing this. So
I made 6 figures last year in a pandemic based off Instagram and selling memberships to Courageous Speaking, where I do one hour webinar on a Sunday a month, and people buy this membership, and it's totally scalable. You can have infinite number of students. A stay-at mum could totally build something like that.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yep. We have some business-related questions, so I'm going to ask them, and I think there are a couple of quite related questions. So one of the questions, I'm going to ask Anna this question first, which is that what are some obstacles young women entrepreneurs are facing in Singapore or in Southeast Asia, and how can they build confidence to actually get started on business building? Anna, I know you started quite a few businesses, you failed quite a few, so maybe you want to chip in with your views?
I think the obstacle, I agree with both ladies that the obstacles are a lot lower now, because you have a lot of resources at your disposal, as let's say compared to say 5 years ago and 10 years ago. So the kind of businesses, I think when you talk about starting a business, I think the term has been redefined, so you can start a side hustle, right? But I will say the difficulties are the same. You need to make money, you need to spend your time. But one of the things that I really believe in is, and I think it has helped 3 of us, I realized there's a common thread between the 3 of us, is that when we started our business, we were not struggling financially, like we actually have a sum of money saved away in case the business fails, right? Yeah. So I think that reduces the pain a bit, and I agree with both ladies that when you want to start something, it's good if you are working. It's good to start it as a side hustle first, so that you know you can pivot and you know what people are willing to pay for you. the other good thing that I always thought is, and I mean, I'm very inspired by both Yasmine and Simone, because I think when I first started, it's very difficult to get female entrepreneurs to speak to you. The number of role models, and I know it sounds very cliche, but the number of people that you look up to, the number of people that are, like you, is very, very, there are not a lot of them. But even when you speak to men, right, like they will say, like, why do you want to start a business? Don't you want to get married, have kids? Yeah, but now I think people are more open. So, and there are more people, more like-minded people. I think what is most important if you want to start your journey is to know exactly what you want to build, and also to actually surround yourself with people that have gone through the journey and can help you to build your business better.
Yeah, and then adding on to like Simone's point that she mentioned earlier, is like if you're in an environment where everyone says it's hard, then your business will be hard. And like, because I have so many friends who run like multi-million-dollar businesses, it's like, oh, okay, like if I just invest here, invest there, then it will scale. And it's a very different mentality. So I think when you're starting out, if like, never hear the opinions of people who haven't done it, because they all have an opinion, and their opinion doesn't mean jack shit, because they don't have the guts to do it. And I think like back to you and your environment with your work colleagues, if everyone says it's hard, then like you're gonna be like, oh yeah, it's so hard, and then you can choose a story.
It's crabs in a barrel, right? It's everybody wanting to keep people safe and not. It's awful to say this, but sometimes I think with women, and I've had to, even cut a few girlfriends of mine that came with me from media and entertainment, who could not understand. Like, I don't want to be a freelance MC. I am building a speaking business. Now that is a very different mindset to the kind of products you bring in and what you do and how you structure the back end. And I was so alienated, and I could see their discomfort in watching me achieve my dreams. And so I will say this to you, if you really want to do this, only take advice from people whose life impresses you, gets you excited, who, like Yasmine said, has done what you want to do. They're the people that you can take the guidance from, because you're like, Rihanna became a billionaire, girl, tell me everything about business. Just call me Rihanna and tell me everything. But if it's from my auntie who's like, hey, how are you gonna make money? Sure not. Aren't you scared? Like,
ignore that.
Auntie, I love you. Thank you for the chassis pals. Goodbye. So just use that as your filter to take advice and find like-minded women. I had to source all over the world. So I have a speaker pod with female speaker business owners in Singapore, and also online in other countries, the UK, Canada, and Australia. And we do regular Zoom catch-ups because they have a similar sort of business and similar sort of phase of the business, and we understand each other. And I completely agree with Anna. I find it really hard. I better join your community to find more women. Maybe I've been looking in the wrong place, but I can't imagine what it was like 6 years ago or 10 years ago.
I actually think that's one of the most challenging part about being an entrepreneur or doing your own business, which is that it tends to be a lonely journey, because then you realize the people around you, people like your parents, for example, whom you respect, they don't exactly understand what you're going through on a day-to-day basis.
What you're doing.
What you're doing, correct. I think my mom may not be sure how we're making money still today sometimes. I mean. All right. Okay, just want to go back to the topic of finance, which is that, I think it's very hard. I shared just now with Yasmine and Simone, even with me and my wife, I make most of the financial decisions at home, and I think that's not good, but then it just naturally gravitates that way because I'm always interested in finance. I'm passionate about finance, hence I want to make the financial decision. Don't argue with me about what to invest in and what not to and stuff like that, right? What are some topics that females can focus on when it comes to finance that you think that can get them started? Yasmine, you want to share first, because I think you are the newest among us.
I would say like the simplest one that I got from a very good friend of mine who's like in his 70s. It's like, in Singapore, if you're Singaporean, we have this amazing tool called CPF. And within CPF, we have a special account, and you can top it up $7,000 extra a year. Like, if you start just adding in, whether it's a monthly $700 or whether it's once a year when you get your bonus, you put it in there, that's like very basic way of optimizing your money, because that was compounding interest. It's a very simple hack that like I learned 6 years ago, and I'm like, okay. Because they give you like 4.5% return. I think it's a very simple thing. The second thing is there's so many robo-advisors. Just start. $200. Like everyone can put $200 aside. And then start to pick one avenue you want to learn. So if you want to learn about REITs, there's a ton of courses. You want to learn about stocks, there's a ton of courses. I would avoid Forex. I feel like Forex is like not very useful. I'm not sure, Anna, you have a different opinion about this. I also think like any kind of options, like I'm not that sophisticated. So I just think there's some simple things you can do. And the last thing as well is that you can also invest in businesses. Because the way we can make money is just three things: business, real estate, or investing. That's it. There's nothing else more than those three categories of making money.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Going to the casino.
And I think, I mean, on the talk about Forex and options and stuff, and even stuff like crypto, I think the whole idea is that you have to be interested, you have to understand the stuff that you're investing into, right? You don't want to just blindly invest in a product just because everyone else is investing into it.
Yeah.
Do we have time for one more question? Let's check. I think maybe we...
But I think adding on to your point, like for example, I only invest in softwares that help small businesses. Because I'm a small business, I use the software, so therefore I get how it works and then I buy it. So everything in my portfolio is actually under that category. There's some people I know who only invest in energy, who only invest in like, so I think just like you find the thing that you want to nerd out about and that you're interested in.
You have to be interested in the topic. I think that's the whole idea that we got to get interested in finance, we got to get interested in our mental health, we got to get interested in our physical health.
Be empowered about these things. Don't just, I have a lot of women in my life who are just like, I'm too scared, I'm not even going to look at it. You know, I'm not even going to look at it. I don't know what's on my mortgage, I don't know what's, it's like, how can you not know? You got to know. You don't know what your SP services bill is? Oh my God. So hopefully today's conversation has allowed people to peel those things back.
All right, looks like we got time for one more question and they're asking me to ask it, so I'm going to ask. Anna, maybe you can chip in here. What are your beliefs surrounding splitting finance in a marriage? And the person who's asking is saying that he or she doesn't believe in a 50-50 arrangement, even if the woman is earning more or less. Anna, you want to help me out here?
Okay, so this is a very interesting question because I remember, one day I was at a friend's gathering, and we were really tired, right, at night. And suddenly someone brought out this topic, a girl brought out this topic and saying that, I'm getting engaged and I don't know how to split finances. And suddenly everyone, I think there was like 6 or 7 of us, became very awake and they started debating this. Yeah, it was a very lively debate. It lasted until 4 a.m. And I think I was the only single one there, like not attached, right? No boyfriend. And I found it very interesting. So I think to summarize, if you talk about it structurally, there are 3 ways of doing it. One is both of you put a certain sum into a joint account. So for example, $3,000, both put the same amount regardless of your pay. Or you can put a proportion, so whoever earns more can put more or whatever is decided, right? And the other model is that you just trust each other fully and you put 100%, both parties put 100% of it. The truth is, I don't know. I can't tell that. If I get married, I don't know which is the right model. I think what is important though is for you and your spouse to have a very honest conversation. I will say that I'm not a very I'm not a very detailed oriented person, so I don't want to bother about like small money. You know what I mean? So if it's me, I think I will want either and I guess I'm a very idealistic and a very, in terms of relationship. So for me, I will go for the 100%. That's my personal view. In terms of 50-50, I really think it depends on the comfort level of the couple. I know my girlfriend, a close friend, who earns more than the husband, and she's actually paying more for the kids and for the mortgage. So I really think it depends on your comfort level. And even if you think that the man should pay more, I don't think there's anything bad in it. Okay, but also I want to clarify this. No, I want to clarify a misconception. People always say that men make financial decisions in the household. Actually, technically, that is not true, because men may make the investment decision, but a lot of the financial decisions are made and decided by women. if you think about it, like who buys the groceries, who buys the, all these small things, which school, who pays for the school, a lot of it are made by women actually. So women are, and historically, women are shown to be better investors than men.
Yeah.
So I just needed to add that.
True as well.
Can I jump in on this question? So with my partner and I, we live together, and like I said, we're older, and so he has a higher net worth. He has been around 14 years longer and earned money 14 years longer than me. So I think that is really unfair if I'm going to pay 50-50. So we've kind of done it proportionately to what I estimate his net worth is and what mine is, and then we do it that way, because otherwise then it cannibalizes my savings right now as I'm building myself up because I'm paying more. And that's just the way we do it. And I think the whole point with this is like, you do you, what you feel is really comfortable, but be aware of that every couple is different. And so have those conversations so you can learn different ways that might interest you to implement in your own relationship, rather than all of us being quiet about it and not discussing it.
Yeah, but one of the things that I've seen that works really well as well is that no matter which approach you do, is that each person has to have their own play money, and that part should not ever be questions. Because I've seen couples fight over like stupid stuff where it's just like, that is their play money. If they want to buy a $5,000 speaker, then they are free to do that. If you want to buy a bag, then you're free to do that. So I think no matter what, like the logistics of everyday spending can be the same, but I think the play money, like
absolutely,
that's like your thing. Like you,
whatever
you want to buy.
We don't even have joint finances. We're totally separate. I do whatever I want.
And
yeah, actually, Yasmine, that's very interesting. You know that this play money thing is mostly suggested by men. Like you are
Really?
yeah,
But I have a play money
a lot
account.
because to them it's like if you want to buy a bag, right? It's not a very big purchase. It's a sizable sum, but when a guy wants to buy a plaything, it's usually a very big purchase, like a car. So yeah, but I think for me, I have to say that I will be one of the criteria for me if or when I date. Is for me to manage the investments. I'll be very, very offended if the guy doesn't.
I love it.
All right, nice. That would be me, the guy making the investments. All right, and I think we come to the end of our 1 hour. For those of you who are watching it at home, I hope this has been a good lunchtime conversation, whether you're in the office or at home. And thank you so much for joining us today. And we really hope that you enjoy these episodes of Autumn Conversation. Follow Autumn on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram for updates on the next webinar, as well as receive tips on how you can manage your finance, physical, and emotional health for your future. And want to say thank you to our 3 lovely speakers, Simone, Yasmine, and Anna over at Zoom. Do follow them on LinkedIn. Do follow me on LinkedIn as well if you want to stay in touch with some of these finance content conversations that we have. And once again, thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you again next time around.
Right. Bye.